In recent years, some of Israel's more extreme opponents have accused it of establishing an apartheid system in the West Bank. The word apartheid literally means apartheid and refers to an official government policy of discrimination against its citizens based on race or ethnicity. A comparison to South Africa, whose government administered an official apartheid state from 1948 until 1994, which legally discriminated against its own black citizens. Jewish and Palestinian coexistence is a complex issue. Different perspectives on history, religion, culture, politics, and security need to be taken into account before it can be fully understood.
Hey guys, and welcome to Mika Reacts and Reviews, where we react to things on the internet. Same day, same shirt, different video. And today we are reacting to, is Israel guilty of apartheid against Palestinians? I've seen a lot of pro-Palestinians talk about or accuse Israel of being an apartheid state, a very oppressive, horrible, anti-Islam regime that is just there to oppress Palestinians. I decided that I'm going to educate myself when it comes to what's going on between these two sides, Israel and Palestine, and educate myself about the history and stuff like that, so I know what I'm talking about if I do have this conversation with someone. I don't like looking like an idiot, and I don't like coming from just pure emotion. I like to have sort of facts and data behind my statements. I stated in my other video when I talked about the sort of beginning history of what happened or the conflict between Israel and Palestine. If you want to go look at that, check it out. I think we just came to the conclusion that it was all the British fault. Anywho, no, I'm just kidding. Not really. So we are going to be watching Unpacked. This was uploaded 2 years ago. I said that it was very, very, very difficult to find people who are talking about this objectively and unbiasedly, that wasn't pandering and leaning to one side. It is extremely hard to find that. I'm doing the best that I can, so I came across this video that is going to explain to us whether Israel is truly an apartheid state, or if the word apartheid is just being used as a sort of emotional trigger word to get people to lean one side or the other. So we're gonna do enough yammering and we're gonna get back into the video. All right, ready? Let's go.
If you're going to say that there's apartheid happening in another part of the world, that same emotion of this evil has to be overcome is stirred up amongst a lot of people. And so you say that the Palestinian people are being subjected to the same evils as South Africans. People are going to get very upset and very angry. And unfortunately, the emotions in that the word apartheid evokes, in my opinion, have been effectively, if I can compliment the people, actually have been very effectively used as a smokescreen to hide the truth of what's going on in the West Bank, both with regards to the realities on the ground and actually with regards to the responsibilities that the Palestinian Authority has in relation to the oppression of the Palestinian people.
Stopping it there. Agreed. Just like the word racist, sexist, transphobia, anti-vax, feminist, like all of these words sort of conjure up emotions, and a lot of times when you become emotional reactionary, your logical thinking and your rational thinking kind of shuts down and goes out the window, and you're just purely being fueled off of emotions. And this is why it's really hard for me to listen to any parts of this argument when someone is being very emotional. And again, I'm not saying that being empathetic and sympathetic is wrong, but for me, I'd rather someone just tell me, like, just objectively with no emotions, what's going on, so I can fully grasp and understand. It's like even when you have an argument with your boyfriend or girlfriend, when someone's being really emotional and you're yelling and you're screaming at the top of your lungs, even though you're being really loud and emotional about what you're saying, a lot of times what you're saying is not even landing because it's just fueled with emotions. And so for me, I do think that using a word like apartheid could be used for propaganda to get people to feel a certain way about Israel. That is not me saying that it's not an apartheid state, and it's not me saying that the Israeli government has not been oppressive to Palestinian people. However, I will say a lot of times when people criticize America if we don't let enough immigrants in, right? But nobody looks at the countries that these people are actually running from and criticize those countries and be like, well, why are they running? Shouldn't we be holding those people's countries' government responsible to take care of their civilians? It never goes the other way. And I think especially when it comes to from progressives, they feel a need not to criticize countries or people or demographics that they feel like is punching down if they criticize them. They come from a developing country, so we can't criticize that country, or they come from a country of slightly brown people, so we can't criticize that country, but we can criticize America because America is a white patriarchal country with so many bloodshed of slavery or blah blah blah, whatever, right? The same thing I will say even about the Ukrainian government. You're looking at Ukraine as if it's the angel, the beacon, and looking at Russia as it's the evil whatever, and at least Putin, right? And looking at Zelensky like he's an angel. But both leaders are bad, and no one's criticizing the Ukrainian government because right now they see them as the victims, and to criticize them will be punching down. No one's criticizing Hamas. No one's criticizing what what they have done themselves to their own people. No one's criticizing Hamas for using its people supposedly as human shields. No one's criticizing Hamas for hiding amongst civilians. No one's criticizing for the oppression that they may have done to their own people. No one's criticizing the Palestinian government. No one's criticizing the Palestinian state. No one's criticizing them, right? Because again, when you look at things at black and white, when you look at the word as oppressed and oppressor, you can't criticizing the oppressed. That's like, victim blaming or something like that. But I said in the previous videos, I'm pretty sure, and I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure if Israeli government, just purely focus on sort of better operations that would lead to less bloodshed, to just get rid of Hamas. If they completely obliterated Hamas, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of Palestinians that would be happy about that would feel freed from the Hamas oppressive state of Palestine. But we're not focused on that. We can only focus on the goodie and the baddie, which just usually misses the entire point altogether. But I guess right now, hashtag ceasefire, because maybe that's the most important thing at the moment, and we can talk about the rest. But I do notice that a lot of times people seem to only go after the ones they think are the ones with the most power, and don't criticize the ones they think maybe have less power. Anyway, let's get back into it.
Apartheid laws made it illegal for blacks to marry, live in the same areas, or conduct business with whites. Black South Africans were barred from certain professions and educational opportunities, could not participate in government, and had to carry documentation. Compare that with the state of Israel, whose 1 million Arab citizens are represented in all branches of government. A government founded on the promise to uphold the full social and political equality of all its citizens, without distinction of race, creed, or sex. For Arabs living in the West Bank, at times Israeli force may be seen as oppressive in context of Israel trying to defend its citizens from terror attacks. But it's a security dynamic that has nothing to do with the definition of apartheid as institutionalized racism. Apartheid's comparison to Israel stems from a difficult reality. Arabs living in some parts of the West Bank are governed by an Israeli military administration and subject to different laws than Israeli citizens. But when you unpack the circumstances surrounding this reality, that's where the comparison ends. Israel's presence in the West Bank is a security measure that started in 1967, after the Six-Day War, when an urgent need for self-defense arose after waves of Arab terrorism from the region created an ongoing existential threat to Israeli citizens. Arab terrorism against Jews had been a reality since 1920, but until the Six-Day War, Jordan's occupation of the West Bank made Israeli security there impossible. After 1967, the scale and frequency of attacks continued to grow. In an attempt to end a Palestinian uprising, known as the First Intifada, the Oslo Accords, a set of agreements made from 1993 to 1995 between Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, gave Palestinian Arabs control over a significant portion of the West Bank under a newly formed Palestinian government, the Palestinian Authority. While there was a renewed hope among Israelis and Arabs that the Accords would usher in a definitive peace process, the negotiations fell apart and instead triggered the deadliest wave of terror Israel had ever seen, known as the Second Intifada in 2000. Faced with incessant terrorism that killed over 1,000 Israelis from 2000 to 2005 alone, Israel's leaders decided to build a barrier wall along the West Bank border, or Green Line, during the Second Intifada that reduced attacks by 84%. Israelis call the barrier a security fence or separation wall, while some Palestinians call it a wall of apartheid. The apartheid label doesn't apply to Israel. Also, because the relationship of Black South Africans to their government was fundamentally different than the relationship Palestinian Arabs have with Israel's government. Blacks in South Africa demanded equal treatment as citizens in their own country. As a result of the Oslo Accords, Palestinians largely govern themselves and vote to elect leaders of the Palestinian Authority government. Israeli laws don't actually apply to much of the West Bank, except for certain areas with greater security risks or higher Jewish populations.
If you look at what's happening in the West Bank, you have areas A, B, and C. A complex arrangement that actually was established not by Israel itself coming down and saying, Palestinian people, this is how we're going to do things. There was an agreement that came to create this, an agreement between the Palestinian leadership and the Israeli leadership, and also an agreement that was recognized on the international platform. And we know that via the Oslo Accords. And in the Oslo Accords, we have the separation of areas A, B, and C. People oftentimes only talk about area C, which is where you have both the security as well as the administration being done by Israel. They forget about areas A and B, which together comprise 90% of the Palestinian people.
Israel's accusers appropriate the term apartheid in describing these areas, where two separate systems of law, civilian and military, apply differently to Israeli citizens and Palestinian Arabs living side by side.
It's important for us to actually understand why apartheid was instituted in South Africa. And one of the founding reasons was the fact that Black South Africans, we weren't deemed to be as equal as white people from a superiority perspective. So if I am to play with it, when God created South Africans, when God created man, he spent a lot more time with white people than he did with Black people.
As apartheid is defined by racial injustice, its claim on Israel, that baffles most Israelis, is fed by a misconception that the country is an outpost of white European Jews who support discriminatory policies against an indigenous minority, Arabs. But in fact, more than half of Israel's Jews are from a Middle Eastern and North African background, known as Mizrahim. Coupled with its Arab citizens, Israel's culture and skin color is far more Middle Eastern than European. In our final episode, we'll take a closer look at the diversity of race and wide array of ethnic groups, nationalities, religious communities, political freedoms, and social viewpoints that combine to form the salad bowl of Israeli society.
All right, guy. That word salad bowl. Okay. I guess they couldn't find any other words to describe diversity. They didn't want to just keep repeating the word diversity, so they said salad bowl. Anywho, so that was Unpacked, talking about is Israel an apartheid state, the Israeli-Palestinian in context. I do know that in Israel, there's many, many Palestinians and Christians and other religions who live in Israel, and I think that is kind of missed when it comes to the sort of pro this or pro that side. I do think that when they talked about sort of skin tone and origins of Israelis, they're kind of hitting on a point that it feels like sometimes when you're looking at the world through oppressed or oppressor, a lot of times if the person is more slightly brown than the other, the progressives or the unique kids who are yelling on the top of their lungs about things kind of tends to sort of lean towards the side of the slightly brown or the brown people, because they just see anyone of color as the oppressed, right? And anyone of lack of color as the oppressors because of white privilege or white superiority or something like that. And they're just mentioning that a lot of Israelis' origins are actually Middle Eastern and not European, so that really doesn't actually make any sense. But I'm sure a lot of pro-Palestinian people say that has nothing to do with it. I tend to think a lot of times that does have something to do with it. It's just a shortcut lizard brain, especially again when you look at the world through the lens of oppressed or oppressor, black and white, binary, goody and baddie, and cut out sort of any nuance and context. When you want to take that shortcut to find out who's the goody or the baddie, and you automatically think brown, oppressed, white oppressor, you're going to automatically pick that side simply because of the tone of their skin, without actually realizing the people that you think are the oppressors have actually a lot of origins in the Middle Eastern communities, which tend to be more tan skin, more brown skin, or whatever. That Israel is diverse, has a lot of different communities. Not only are Israelis fighting for Israel, there's a lot of Palestinians in Israel that is also fighting for Israel. It's not just Israelis. But anywho, let me know what you guys think of that video. This video is probably most likely going to get demonetized, so please donate and support this channel if you want to see more videos like this. Some of you, I probably don't care about this or just want to move on from this. To me, it actually found it really interesting. When I started digging more into the history and wanted to educate myself more about it, I actually found it kind of interesting. I like educating myself. I like learning about things. You may disagree or agree with this unpacked piece. Maybe you think it's biased, maybe you think I'm biased. Let me know in the comment section what you believe in the comment section below. If you do indeed believe Israel is an apartheid state, or you believe that a lot of people who are maybe anti-Israel or anti-Semitic is using the apartheid word to sort of garner sympathy for their sides and just make one side look bad and one side look good. Let me know in the comment section below. Please like, comment, subscribe. Again, donate, share. I love you guys. You guys have an amazing day. And again, I am not picking sides, so just educating myself.